The Call of Duty community is killing Call of Duty. Now, when I say the COD community, I don't mean people who play the game. I mean the people who talk about the game online. The people who, like me, post about it on Twitter, make videos on YouTube, make threads on Reddit. The people who seem to have an insatiable need for discourse and for their opinion to be listened to when it comes to a video game. Like I said, I am one of these people, much to my shame. There was a time when I was blissfully unaware of the Call of Duty community. Even as recently as Black Ops 4, I was merrily enjoying the Chaos Zombies storyline, Blackout, and the operators that had superpowers in multiplayer. I had no idea that strangers didn't like it. It was great. It was maybe the last time I've had that much fun with a Call of Duty game. But since I started getting involved in the Easter egg community with Bunker 11 and Verdansk, and the content creation with Modern Warfare 2019, I've been exposed to the discourse. A group of players who don't really care about gaming. They only care about Call of Duty. They only play Call of Duty. They see Call of Duty as purely a competitive game and see being good at Call of Duty as an important life skill. Their high kill-death ratios are a notable achievement to them, and sadly they're a group of people who Activision seem to have started to pander to over the years. It's worth pointing out that they're definitely not the majority. You only need to look at the recent review scores for Modern Warfare 3 to see the kind of disparity between the online Call of Duty community, who seem to praise it as the best thing ever and a return to Call of Duty's roots, against the critical reception, which was incredibly negative. Normal Call of Duty players don't read about Call of Duty online. They don't talk about it online. They don't care what the meta is or what's coming next. They don't care about skill-based matchmaking or the CDL. They just load the game up every now and then and have some fun with their friends. They're the happy ones. The Call of Duty community are seemingly led by a relatively small group of content creators and Twitterers who have very specific views on Call of Duty, and then talk about it as if that's what good players think. If you don't share their opinion, you're a casual, you're trash, you're a rat, you're a bot, you're not worth their time. It's amazing how toxic the way they speak is about normal players. In their eyes, they are the hardcore players, so they are the elite. I personally think it would be healthier to think of the hardcore players as being the ones who are kind of playing the game wrong, the ones who are kind of the weirdos in this situation, the ones who shouldn't be paid attention to because they play Call of Duty way too much. And again, I'm including myself in that. I definitely play Call of Duty too much. I definitely care about Call of Duty way more than it deserves. It's a video game. It's basically a toy. But this group of people, the online Call of Duty community, are killing Call of Duty. Now, to explain what I mean, I need to go back quite a long way, all the way back to the beginning of Call of Duty. Unlike a lot of people in this community, I'm pretty old, so the first Call of Duty I played was Call of Duty, the one that didn't have any numbers or subtitles after it. It was just called Call of Duty. It was on PC only. You could only play it with keyboard and mouse, so it's always a little bit funny when you see people saying like, no, the roots of Call of Duty are in people playing on controller. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. But anyway, the first time I played Call of Duty, I was really impressed by it. I'd heard that it had got good reviews. The campaign was amazing, super cinematic and really interesting, especially the Eastern Front, which was something that at that time I didn't really know much about at all. And then multiplayer was a lot of fun. There were some maps that were designed around sniping, some maps that were designed around like running and gunning with SMGs and stuff. There was a lot of variety and it was very cool. There was no sliding, there was no slide cancelling because you literally couldn't slide. You weren't drop-shotting or anything like that. People were just playing a World War II game that was pretty arcadey, where you could run around and shoot each other, and it was cool. And then Call of Duty 2 came out, and it was kind of more of the same, except it was also on consoles. That's where I played it, on the Xbox 360. And you could play through a campaign, very, very similar to the first one, but just kind of a little bit more focused, linear, streamlined maybe. And then the multiplayer was, again, super arcadey, but a bit more polished, and there was a little bit more emphasis on kind of movement and running around compared to other first-person shooters at the time. And then Call of Duty 3 came out, and the campaign was, again, more of the same pretty much. The multiplayer was super weird. I think that was Treyarch's first game, and it was really bizarre. They were like tiny maps, but you could drive buggies and tanks around and stuff. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I didn't really like that game very much. But then Call of Duty 4 came out and kind of changed everything. They really drilled down on the multiplayer. They focused on the multiplayer being a little bit more competitive. There was progression involved in it. There was a reason to play beyond just the game being fun. It was about trying to have the highest rank, trying to get kill streaks where you could like show off to the rest of the lobby at how good you were by calling in things like a helicopter. The campaign, to be fair, was still pretty much more of the same. Like, it was just taking different soldiers' perspectives of a battle, but now, obviously, it was in the modern day. And it did some really cool, interesting things. There were some interesting levels in there, but the basics of it were still the same. It was a lot of set pieces tied together with wandering down big, wide-open corridors, often outside, but still kind of funneled into corridors, killing respawning enemies. Then World at War came out, and again, it was kind of the same thing. Going back to World War II this time, a pretty much linear campaign of you wandering down corridors, killing enemies with some cool set pieces in between. The multiplayer was pretty similar to what it was like in Modern Warfare, with a few little twists, like having a tank and stuff. It added zombies, which was a little bit of innovation, and I remember being super shocked when I finished the campaign, and suddenly it threw me into this Nazi zombies thing, and immediately thinking, like, is this okay? Is this something that we should be laughing at? Or is this meant to be taken seriously? It was super confusing, but it was a lot of fun. And then we got Modern Warfare 2, which was the same as Modern Warfare 1 pretty much, just with, you know, a few extra bits and pieces here and there, but basically the same style of game, and it was hilariously broken. I always think it's weird when people talk with a lot of nostalgia about Modern Warfare 2, because my memory of it is hacked lobbies on console and insanely unbalanced weapons that just never got fixed. It was a complete mess, but it was kind of a chaotic mess, which was a lot of fun. But then something seemed to change with Modern Warfare 2 back in 2009. Bear in mind, by then, again, I'm old. I was out of university by then. I was a teacher by then. I'd already done my postgraduate certificate, so I was a teacher by then. I was an adult, and Modern Warfare 2 seemed very silly to me. But I remember tournaments starting to pop up, seeing things on the internet where people were playing Modern Warfare 2 against each other and taking it incredibly seriously. Now, esports weren't new at all. You know, I'd watched plenty of StarCraft 2 tournaments, I'd watched people playing Halo competitively, but something stood out to me about the way Call of Duty was being played competitively. That there was a bunch of what looked to me like teenage boys on stages absolutely screaming at each other, just being incredibly toxic, incredibly aggressive, you know, these nerdy teens just screaming at each other over a video game. And I was immediately like, oh, that's horrible. And it kind of put a bit of a bad taste in my mouth about Call of Duty. I think that first time I was watching competitive Call of Duty being played, I was there with a girlfriend and she was just like, who are these people? Like, who are these weirdos doing this? And that's kind of always stuck with me, this idea that that's what Call of Duty competitive games seem to be like. A bunch of weirdos getting super angry and toxic at each other about a video game that I thought was fairly silly. And then moving on, we went into games like Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, and I remember a lot of the criticism about Call of Duty is that all of these games were basically the same. If you were really into Call of Duty, you could appreciate the differences, and you could appreciate the difference in kind of movement and weapons and maps between the Treyarch games and the Infinity Ward games, and a lot of these games were a lot of fun. You know, I really enjoyed Black Ops and Black Ops 2. I thought they were great games. Didn't think Modern Warfare 3 was that good. But there was definitely some fatigue setting in. And I know a lot of the critical responses to these games were kind of like, oh, it's another year, another Call of Duty, the same kind of stuff as always. And that is kind of what it felt like, that it was starting to get a little bit bland. It was starting to get a little bit tedious. And then they started trying new things. We got Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, I know it's almost like a meme for people to hate on Ghosts, but I personally really enjoyed it. The single-player campaign, while functionally was still kind of the same, they tried some different ideas in there, and it was on a much bigger scale than previous campaigns had been. It was much more like a Michael Bay blockbuster movie, rather than trying to be some sort of gritty war film. And I thought that campaign was a lot of fun for the reason that it was kind of different. And then the multiplayer tried a lot of new things, where they had some massive open maps like that Scotland map in the castle that I thought was pretty cool. I know some people didn't like it, but as someone that had been jumping between lots of different FPS games and playing a lot of Battlefield around that time, it was really cool to see a bigger map in Call of Duty and see, you know, snipers and things like that being used in a slightly different way, a slightly slower pace of game maybe. But the people who'd been playing the game competitively, the people who'd been playing competitively through Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, they didn't like this. They were super angry about it. And this was also around the time that social media was really picking up steam. And so people expressed their views on how much they hated it, how much they really didn't like Ghosts, and they didn't like that different things had been tried. But obviously, by the time Ghosts had already come out, Advanced Warfare had been being worked on for a couple of years by that point, and that came out next. Advanced Warfare came out, my personal favourite Call of Duty, and they were really trying something new. It was obviously a response to all of that criticism in the gaming press and, you know, amongst real gaming critics, that Call of Duty had stagnated, it'd been the same thing year after year, and Advanced Warfare had an absolutely crazy campaign, really futuristic, lots of weird stuff happening, the movement was completely overhauled, zombies was completely different, the multiplayer maps were awesome, super creative, even the way they did kill streaks was really different, the weapons were super different, it was just a super innovative, creative game, and I found it really, really refreshing. And after that, we had a couple more games as each of the other studios kind of brought out their titles. So we had Black Ops 3 from Treyarch, which I think a lot of people see as the best of the Black Ops games, which still had the exo movement in, but also had zombies trying some really different things. The campaign, admittedly, was kind of terrible. And I don't want to make this video sound like every time Call of Duty tries something new, it works. The Black Ops 3 campaign was kind of bad. But there was a lot of creativity in it. There was a lot of experimentation in it, and I thought it was really cool. And Infinite Warfare came out, and it was starting to fall back into the same pattern of, oh, okay, this is another one of these games. You know, this isn't as different as maybe some of the games before it had come. But it was still a lot of fun. It was still very different from any other games that seemed to be about at the time. I really enjoyed it. Not as much as Advanced Warfare maybe, or Black Ops 3, but I thought it was really cool. And then all of that criticism that had been leveled way back in Ghosts, I think, but then especially at Advanced Warfare, from that competitive crowd who were like, we just want you to go back to Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2. We want that style of game again. We think that's what Call of Duty really is. That's when it seemed like people started to listen to them. It seemed like Activision listened to them. Again, social media was getting bigger and bigger, and it felt like they wanted there to be that sort of positivity from that Call of Duty community, rather than necessarily from the gaming critics. And Call of Duty World War II came out. So this was a return to boots on the ground. They made a big deal about that they were going back to kind of a more realistic version of Call of Duty. And to me, it was really boring. To me, that was maybe the most boring Call of Duty's been until this most recent Modern Warfare 3. Like, World War II was just a dull game. It had a really cool lobby system, but everything else about the game just seemed incredibly forgettable. And then we got Black Ops 4, where I think it was the last time Call of Duty was being super creative in every aspect. They decided not to do a campaign, which I think made sense because people hadn't really thought much of the Call of Duty campaigns basically forever. And they decided to focus instead on having a Battle Royale mode, Blackout, which I thought was awesome and was quite different from other Battle Royale game modes at the time, and included things like a wingsuit and a grappling hook. Just absolutely awesome stuff. Had zombies within Battle Royale, which was really cool. And then they had the multiplayer, where obviously you had operators with their own special superpowers, a bit like a hero shooter type thing. I thought the whole thing was really cool. And in Zombies, they completely redid the whole system. So instead of having the old Aether storyline, you had the Chaos storyline. Instead of the maps just being kind of taken from other single-player things and other projects that they'd been working on, they'd been really, really creative and made one that was on the Titanic, one that was in the Colosseum. Loads of really, really cool things. And then you started having this Call of Duty community pipe up again, saying, hey, we don't like the multiplayer. We don't like you having hero shooter aspects in our Call of Duty. This isn't what we like about Call of Duty. Don't do that again. And they didn't like Blackout. So like, Call of Duty doesn't need a Battle Royale game. I vividly remember lots of posts of people saying things like that. Call of Duty doesn't need Battle Royale. Stop trying to chase trends and stuff like that. We don't want that. And then within the Zombies Call of Duty community, people saying, we want Richtofen and Dempsey and Sam Maxis. We don't want these new characters. We don't want this new way of doing perks and things like that. Put it back to what it was like before. And then next year we got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. It did have Warzone with it, which was definitely innovative. It was a new take on Battle Royale, and obviously I really enjoyed Warzone, and I still enjoy Warzone to this day. But the core game of Modern Warfare 2019 was an obvious attempt to get back towards what the game was like in the original Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 times. They brought back a load of those old characters. They brought back a load of elements of the story, a lot of locations. They decided to go back to this idea of you going down corridors, shooting lots of enemies in the campaign, admittedly with a couple of little twists where they had some slightly more open areas. The multiplayer was going back to this idea of it all just being about progression, but generally you just moving around and shooting in the same way that you did in Modern Warfare 2 and 3. It all felt very sort of samey to me. And then we had Black Ops Cold War, which was Treyarch's maybe least ambitious game. Treyarch making a game that felt an awfully similar game to Modern Warfare 2019 to me, compared to what they'd been doing with Black Ops 1, 2, 3, and 4. It felt like they'd gone back to, okay, we're going to have boots on the ground. We're going to have a pretty normal game again. Incredibly forgettable campaign to me. The multiplayer was fun, but it felt a lot like Modern Warfare 2019, which I'd already been playing for a year by then. And then the zombies had been massively scaled back and had gone back to kind of, instead of the craziness we'd seen in Black Ops 4, an attempt to try and emulate some of the stuff that we saw in Black Ops 3, but with less support. So there were less maps and there was less interesting things going on. And obviously we started getting the introduction of a lot of different monetization options. People, I think understandably, hadn't really liked the loot boxes where you had a random chance of getting some pretty cool stuff, like in some special weapons and stuff like that. But they'd also not liked the expansion passes, where every now and then you had to pay £15 to get a new zombies map and a few multiplayer maps. So they were focusing on cosmetics, and that led to zombies in Black Ops Cold War not even having proper characters through most of it. Instead, you were just playing as an operator, so you didn't have all of those cool voice lines and interactions and things like that that you'd had in the previous games. And then we had Vanguard, which again, kind of a tedious game. I thought the campaign was all right for what it's worth. You know, as far as Call of Duty campaigns go, I kind of enjoyed it. The gameplay was fairly forgettable, but the cutscenes were okay, and the music was absolutely awesome. And at least they tried to make lots of new multiplayer maps, but the gameplay felt very similar to the two games before it. And then we had Modern Warfare 2, where the gameplay, again, felt quite similar to games before it. And it's worth pointing out here, this is probably where I started getting really angry at the Call of Duty community. Because I'd just played Vanguard, Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2019, that to me all felt a little bit bland, a little bit samey. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out with a beta that to me looked incredible. It played really, really well. They changed a lot of stuff up by removing red dots off the minimap, turning the footstep audio up a lot so you could actually hear where people were rather than just using the minimap to get most of your information from. It was a little bit slower, a little bit more tactical. There were loads of different like lethals that were super interesting, like the drill charge and extra bits of equipment to help you play. I thought it was really cool. The maps weren't great, admittedly. The maps weren't very good, but I thought the gameplay was at least a bit refreshing. It was a bit of a change, and the community kicked off so much and just argued about it and said it was terrible and it wasn't what Call of Duty was and it was trash and it wasn't going to do very well. So then Activision decided to pander to them, took away all of those innovations, took away those changes, and we ended up with maybe the blandest Call of Duty that we'd ever had up to that point. We ended up with a game that I don't think anybody really ended up loving because it was just kind of a horrible mix of all of the similar things from what we'd seen in Modern Warfare 2019 with some little remnants of things that they'd had to change at the last minute. And the same thing happened in Warzone 2, in my mind at least. The Warzone 2 that they showed off at COD Next looked super promising. Yes, it wasn't really ready for COD Next, and they didn't get to play it with the loadout and attachment system. They didn't get to use any of that stuff. But they're trying stuff like having AI around the maps. They were trying stuff like really a focus more on ground loot and having to like get quite a lot of money if you wanted to get special weapons. And immediately the creators that were there were saying, oh no, we hate this, no one should be playing this. So normal people didn't get a chance to play it. We just had to rely on them saying, oh no, you wouldn't like this. Even though they had only played 3 matches of it, and they hadn't even got to play it as it was intended with the whole loadout system working properly. They just decided that it wasn't what we wanted, so they spoke for us, and then Activision decided to pander them and change a load of things last minute, which I think is probably what led to Warzone 2 not being very good. That obviously it had been designed with a certain kind of concept in mind, And at the last minute, they'd had to go back on it, had to try and change things very quickly, and we ended up with something that was just incredibly bland. Then Modern Warfare 3 came out, and with Modern Warfare 3, we were just getting basically a direct sequel, which was something that hadn't really happened since the original Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3. We were just getting consecutive years, another Modern Warfare game, and they were saying the big thing about this, the big selling point, is that everything's back to what it was like before. You're getting maps from Modern Warfare 2, you're getting the movement from Modern Warfare 2019, you're getting things back to how you liked it before. And then we've had this massive sort of disagreement between the Call of Duty community that seem to be absolutely loving it and saying, this is amazing, we can slide cancel again, there's a big skill gap again, so we can destroy the normal players. We can play on all of these maps that we already know, that we've already spent dozens of hours on. And then the critics, I think rightfully so, looked at it and were like, oh, this is back to when Call of Duty was kind of boring and stagnated, and they haven't done anything new with it. It seems like quite a lazy entry, and it got terrible review scores. And this left me in a kind of awkward position because I'm in the middle of this. I am a part of the Call of Duty community. I was at COD Next last year, but I'm also on the side of the critics of Modern Warfare 3 that I think it's the laziest Call of Duty's ever seemed. Every part of it seems incredibly bland, incredibly boring. It just seems like it's cobbled together of stuff that we've seen before, and there's nothing new to get really excited about, and that's a real shame. And although I don't like talking about leaks on this channel or data mines, what I've heard about the next Treyarch game, the game we're getting this year, it doesn't sound to me like it's going to be some super creative, exciting Treyarch experience. Instead, it sounds a bit like Treyarch trying to do a game that Infinity Ward would normally do, which is a little bit worrying. I mean, basing that entirely on the name of it from what I've heard. But yeah, that isn't filling me with a lot of confidence that we're going to get something super exciting this year. So let's get back to the point of this video. That was a very, very kind of long walk through Call of Duty history. The point of this video was that the Call of Duty community is killing Call of Duty. And by that, I mean by being incredibly passionate about what they think Call of Duty should be, based on what they've enjoyed in the past. They're stifling any innovation and creativity. And again, to make it clear, I don't think all of the innovation that Call of Duty's ever done has been a good thing. I think they've tried things that haven't worked. Absolutely, for sure. But I still prefer it when they try new things. I like it when they try to do something a little bit different. What I don't want is just to keep on playing the same game year after year after year. And I think a big part of that is because the online Call of Duty community, particularly the biggest content creators and Twitter accounts and things like that, have only really been interested in Call of Duty when it's competitive. They're only interested in being better than other people at Call of Duty. So they fall into a lot of the same kind of opinions that, you know, skill-based matchmaking is bad because it means that they can't stomp on pubs. Whatever they say their reason for thinking skill-based matchmaking is bad is, it's just because they have to play against other people that also spend all their time playing Call of Duty and getting really good at it. So they can't win games super easily, so they don't like that, because their self-worth is very much attached to how good they are at Call of Duty. They see everything about Call of Duty in that competitive mindset. So when something comes along like the original view for Warzone 2 or Modern Warfare 2, where they would have to adapt, they would have to think about the game differently, maybe learn some new skills, learn how to play a new game, they hate it because they've already invested so much of themselves, so much of their time into being good at what Modern Warfare 2 was, what Modern Warfare 3 was, what those older games were. And, you know, Modern Warfare 2019, which is where a lot of the content creators that are big now got their start. They've spent so much time working on them. They don't want to have that risk. They don't want to lose those skills. They don't want to lose their kind of position as being super good at it by having the game change around them. And for players like me who don't care as much about the competitive side of Call of Duty, I don't care too much about whether someone's better or worse than me at Call of Duty. You know, if I meet somebody, I'm not going to be interested in what their kill death is in Call of Duty. I just enjoy playing the game because I like having a fun time. I like Warzone because it used to have fun little stories that would emerge of me playing with my friends. Fun things would happen. I like chaos. I like there being stuff that's a bit unexpected, a bit creative, a bit innovative. And that side of it is just getting absolutely slaughtered by people who want everything to be the way it already was. This all kind of came to a head this week, and this is why I'm making this video really, when a trailer for the new Rebirth Island map came out, and it looked like there was destruction. And I immediately made a video saying, this is really cool, I'm really excited about the idea that we could be getting destruction in Warzone. That's completely different from anything that we've had before really. And I looked online, expecting to see other people being excited about it, and people were like, no, this is terrible. Why do you need to keep changing things? Why do you need to keep breaking the maps? Why do you need to put holes in things? Why did you put a crack in Fortune's Keep? We don't want there to be a hole in the prison of Rebirth Island, even though there already was in one version of Rebirth Island. But anyway, they seem to be super against the idea that it would be different to what they expected, that there would be something different about this version of Rebirth Island. And then Raven put out a tweet saying, oh, we've seen the conversations about it. This is actually something that's coming in mid-season. We're going to call it something like Initial Strike, so it's something that's going to change the map before you start playing it. So there's basically just going to be map variants. You know, you will load up the map, and sometimes you'll get a map variant where there's a hole in prison roof, or the lighthouse has fallen over, or something like that, which to me is much less exciting. But the Call of Duty Online community were super excited about that. They were like, yeah, this is amazing. That's exactly what we want. This is really cool. It's like, what? A map variant where sometimes there might be a hole on the map. How is that more cool than the idea that maybe players could trigger some kind of levolution like what we used to have in Battlefield 3, where something huge and dramatic happens? That's something we've never had in Warzone. How cool would that have been? But no, they want things to be exactly the same. They want Rebirth Island to come out the exact same way. And, you know, we've seen this year, across the year of content for Call of Duty, aside from the fact that Modern Warfare 3 seemed to have so little creativity in it, you know, even MWZ, which was the newest, most different thing they did, the zombies mode, was just cobbled together from field upgrades we'd seen before, perks we'd seen before. I think there's one new enemy type in it with the giant worm, and they just reused that over and over and over again, and now have said there's no new perks or enemy types coming to it. It just seems almost creatively bankrupt, like there's nothing new coming, because instead they're just trying to push out as much content as they possibly can, and the easiest way to do that is just to make everything basically the same and everything super bland. And then this year, what have we got to look forward to? What are the big things that they've been announcing that are exciting? We've got Fortune's Keep coming back after they deleted it a while ago, and then Rebirth Island's coming back after they deleted it a while ago. Warzone Mobile, where you get to play on Verdansk and Rebirth Island maps that we already had. Remember when Verdansk was around for absolutely ages at the beginning of Warzone, and people were super sick of it and saying, oh, we really need a big new map. Look, Apex getting a new map, Fortnite's getting a new map. Why aren't we getting a new map? And then they brought out a new map and they said, oh no, we hate it. Put it back to the old map. We don't like new things. And then what's the big rumor? What's the big thing that people are excited about might happen this year in Warzone? We might get Verdansk again. The map that we already had before that people were already sick of, but we might be able to go back to it. The Call of Duty Online community just seems to hate creativity. They hate innovation. They hate change. They just have an idea of what the game was like when they enjoyed it the most, and they want it to go back to that. And I can kind of understand that nostalgia and kind of understand the idea that, well, if that was the most fun I ever had with Call of Duty, why wouldn't I just want that again? And the answer is because before Modern Warfare 2019 came out, before Warzone came out, before Verdansk came out, people were saying they didn't want a Battle Royale in Call of Duty because it wasn't what they were used to. But then we got it, they tried it, and it was super cool. It was super exciting. Often you don't know what you want until someone is brave enough to create it. Someone is brave enough to be creative and actually try something different. If we just keep on looking for things that we've already had and trying to go back to things we've already had, we won't have any new experiences. We won't have any new things being created that in the future we're longing for and we have nostalgia for. Instead, they'll just keep on recycling the old bland mess. Now, massive thanks to anyone that's got this far into this video, because this is a half-an-hour rant. This is pretty ridiculous even by my standards. But I do really feel passionate about this, that creativity seems to be draining out of Call of Duty. And a part of that is due to microtransactions and them making the games more and more expensive to make and needing to get more and more money out of us. But I think a huge part of it is just because they keep listening to that part of the online Call of Duty community. And this video, I'm not saying that online Call of Duty community should stop saying what they're saying. It's their opinion, they're entitled to it, they can say whatever they want. What I do wish is that the people who are making the games would stop listening to them. I wish that they would just trust in their own creative instincts, make what they want to make, and then maybe they'll come up with new fans along the way. If you really love the old Call of Duty games and then a new one comes out that you don't like as much, that's fine. That's not a problem. Maybe some other people will like the new Call of Duty. And that's cool because that means we still get progression, we still get new things being made, and then maybe we'll get some of those new amazing things being created that in the future we'll be looking back on with nostalgia. If you enjoyed this rant and you got this far in the video, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.